Hi there. I'm excited to tell you about the launch of our Me Vision Academy. It's all about helping individuals discover the vision of who they really are and can become. But this message that I'm going to give you right now is the most important one I can give you. For almost a quarter century, I have worked with and interviewed leaders on the highest levels, even presidents. They profess to know much about leadership, running organizations, generating personal wealth, and living life to the fullest. They have many opinions about the economy, the future, the past. They have views on the influence of politics, the impact of technology, the fourth industrial revolution, and artificial intelligence, the latest thing. Also, how to get the best out of people, and so much more. In my many one-on-one and group sessions over the years with leaders, I hope that I have made some difference to many already successful leaders. However, I've often grappled with what they need next. If they are already earning well, leading many people, confident, successful according to most societal norms, what next? Of course, they should never become lax, just like top sports people continually need coaches and can't afford to become blasé. More than ever, senior leaders need their sounding board and support, very much for the same reasons. But still, what's next for them? How and where do they next take their thinking and leading? Here is where my grappling amidst interviewing and one-on-ones have led over many years. To start with, it astounds me that many of the societal influences, the future shapers of our society, do not have confident answers to the greatest and most perplexing questions of life, which cannot but directly impact their thinking, their perceptions and philosophies about life and people, their values and priorities, how they show up as their best self, the decisions, the important decisions they make, their long-term future, and that of their families and those they lead. Some of these questions are: where do we come from before birth? Why are we here on earth, collectively and individually? What happens after we die? Is there in fact a creator or God? If there is a God, does he have genuine opposition? What's the nature of God? Is there an overarching battle between good and evil? And if there is, what's the aim of the latter? Is there a heaven and hell, as many have been taught since young? Will there be a judgment based on how we lived on earth? Does it matter? Do I have a soul or a spirit? If yes, what does that mean for my day-to-day living, my future, my past? Who am I really? And who can I truly become? How do I ensure true and lasting happiness in this life, especially, but not just temporary pleasure? And what happens to my family relationships after death? My parents, siblings, wife, and kids? Do we become acquaintances or remain a family unit? And there are many more questions that most seem to simply brush aside. Now, even the most influential and wealthiest man on the planet, Elon Musk, whom I follow and admire, can sit through interviews with skilled interviewers and answer eloquently about almost anything impacting our future as a human race. However, as soon as he is asked some of these pertinent questions, he finds himself on shaky ground. Someone or something has somehow convinced us it isn't important enough to find answers to these questions, that there are much more important matters to worry about, to chase after. How did this happen? Why have we allowed relatively insignificant, in many cases extremely temporary in nature, issues and questions to trump questions and answers of potential eternal significance? Why do we believe these topics are off limits while talking business or politics are not? Should answers to these questions impact our decisions and actions today? How can they not? Why ignore these questions and instincts inside us? Will it go away because we don't confront it head on or actively search for answers? Can we truly achieve our full potential and extract the full potential of our people if we don't know the answers, or at least some of them? Do we really think we will reach our full potential on Earth or in space, Elon Musk, without starting to find some answers? How ignorant and perhaps laughable if anyone thinks we will. This message is about starting the conversation of addressing these elephants in the room. It is about a vision of who you really are and can become, so that you will today or in the future lead yourself, others, your organization, and society more consciously, purposefully, meaningfully. It is about appealing to your intuition, deep and powerful instincts, where most fear to tread. It can also be described as a process of radical reverse transformation, which is about going back to uncover who was always there, but over time has been covered under endless influences, almost hidden from the world and yourself, so that you can boldly move forward towards your ultimate best self. My message is for those who aren't afraid of embracing truth through intuition. In this message, you shouldn't look for facts in the generally accepted way, though there often are much of it. You need to trust your intuition. Tap into another level of facts and proof. Let me set the scene a little bit more. From true self to best self. In this little section, I hope to answer questions like, how do I ensure true and lasting happiness in this life, not just temporary pleasure? And also, where do we come from before birth? So let me try and address those amongst others in this setting scene section. If you want to be truly happy and ultimately successful in the long run, number one, understand who you are factually and feel who you are intuitively. That's your true self. Number two, understand who you can become factually and feel who you can become intuitively. That's your best self. Very silly example. Factually, you hold a good engineering, accounting, teaching degree. That's your true self. It's the truth about you. And you can therefore become an engineer, accountant, or teacher. That's your best self that you could potentially become. Factually, you have distinguishing attributes, your height, your weight, your looks, and so on. You have a name and a surname and experienced a certain upbringing in a certain place, certain schools, under the guidance of teachers, parents, or guardians. Factually, you can define your true self on many fronts and then, to some degree, project your future best self. Defining yourself intuitively is something else. You can start looking at yourself emotionally, psychologically, from an internal character perspective. You can define who you believe you really are inside, that person others don't always see or aren't aware of. Even that person you were at a young age before many intruder influences infiltrated your life. What do you look and act like when you are your best self, when you're in that zone almost? What do you deeply believe is your ultimate potential? So, but here is a deeper intuitive truth to begin with. And it's only on this level that we can even attempt or begin to address the elephants in the room. Inside your physical body is your spirit self, your spirit, which is your true self. That is actually who brings your physical body to life. Remove your spirit, your true self, right now, and your mortal physical body becomes lifeless. Your physical body will stop functioning. Where does your spirit come from? That's the same as asking, where do you come from? My message attempts to connect you with your true self, your spirit, through your heart and mind, because your spirit penetrates every part of your being. I can therefore I want to suggest that you set aside quiet time to listen to this message. I think it's short enough. It's fairly long, but it's short enough for you to commit to completing it. Do at least that, please, as the context at the end is significant. Life for your true self consists of 3 stages: pre-mortal, mortal, and post-mortal, also becoming immortal. Factually, you are now in the middle stage, mortality. Intuitively, I challenge you to feel that part of you was in pre-mortality before birth. I challenge you to feel or imagine that you will be in post-mortality after death. And let's be frank, most, if not all human beings, including you, wonder about what happened before birth and what will happen after death. Many, perhaps also you, instinctively or intuitively feel they existed before and will continue to exist after mortality. However, they either choose to ignore exploring it further or simply do not know where to find more information. Some always wanted to seek for the answers, but life happened, and they somehow shifted those all-important instincts to the side. You know where you fit in. Today, I challenge you to stop procrastinating, to stop being cautious or even fearful of asking these eternally significant questions. In fact, I challenge you to boldly, unashamedly explore and search until you find the answers. When you understand all 3 stages, mostly intuitively, you develop a much deeper understanding of your true self en route to your best self. It takes on a life, in fact, takes on a whole new meaning. So in this recording, I will share with you how I understand and intuit the 3 stages, which could transform your life from here on forward, especially if you connect on the intuitive level. My view or views are based on decades of studies, experience, and practicing, then developing a keen intuitive capacity. Much of what I will share, your factual mortal being may want to reject. However, if you rely on your intuition, it may be a whole different story. You will feel your spirit inside. My experience is that as you work those intuitive or faith muscles, intuition, also faith, becomes an ever stronger power, force, and driver to action than logical facts and proof could. It's even stronger than that. We move through life using our blue, brown, green eyes of sight, understandably so. Yet what we need to adopt is the capacity to use our spirit eyes of faith, not eyes of sight, eyes of faith. These are the eyes of our true self, our spirit. The more intelligent, now this is something interesting that I have discovered. The more intelligent, experienced, and perceived successful individuals often struggle hugely with this eye of faith thing. I think it's partly because when you have more than enough money to buy more than you need, then it becomes easier to rely on yourself, on your eyes of sight, rather than your eyes of faith. But it's not always the case. As I take you forward, you may notice a few golden threads or similarities between the 3 stages as I walk you through it. So in particular, I want you to look out for the family connection. All right, let's look at the pre-mortal life. Okay. I hope to answer the following questions during this section. Where do we come from before birth? This is very exciting, actually. To know more about pre-life, pre-mortal life is such a gem. Where do we come from before birth? Is there a creator or God? What's the nature of God? Is there a God? Does he have genuine opposition? Is there an overwhelming battle between good and evil? Do I have a soul or a spirit? If yes, what does that mean for my living, daily living, future living? Who am I really? And who can I really become? It's interesting to note of all those questions I listed, and there are many more. The premortal life seems to address so many of those. Now, before you were born, you existed as your spirit self in a vast family environment. with spirit siblings. Yes. Therefore, you have parents who happen to be immortal. So they are physical, tangible, and they cannot die. But they're not spirits solely. They are mortal, immortal, physical bodies. They love you infinitely and want the best for you eternally. Now, they have been through the premortal and mortal stages and are well into their postmortal, immortal stage. It's a bit like our earthly parents who have been through some of life already. By the time we arrive, they've been children, they've been teenagers, they've been young single adults. When immortal parents bear children, they come out in spirit form, almost half immortal. That spirit is immortal, but they're not physical. They look like their parents, but they are spirits. And you'll understand as we go along. You lived as this spirit child. You made choices. And you progressed to a point. You developed a character and reached a certain level of maturity. How long this lasted, we don't know. Just accept anything finite is an earthly concept, like time and numbers. It didn't and doesn't exist there in the way it does on earth. So it's an interesting concept to think about. Much like our earthly existence, where we grow up in a family environment and eventually need to leave home to progress further, so you had to leave your immortal parents' presence, progress further on your eternal path. Leaving them and others you were close to meant mortal birth came next, a step closer to the ultimate achievement of immortality, like your immortal parents. The experience may have been somewhat exciting, yet traumatic. I don't know, like that first time you said goodbye to your earthly family to go to varsity or get married or start working in another part of the country, when you moved out for whatever reason. Maybe you were very excited to move out, away from that annoying youngest sibling or whatever it is. And maybe we were very excited to leave our premortal life as well, to move forward. Now, it's very important to note the following about our premortal stage. Our parents taught us much about eternal life and what lay before us. What was coming? Mortality and post-mortality. This is what parents do. They teach their children about life and present what they believe to be the best way of navigating it. Our parents did the same. That's what parents do. They just did it on an eternal life scale. We learned that we could follow in their footsteps and one day become immortal ourselves. We too could grow our own infinite family and live an eternal life as they did. There came a time when Father more formally presented the second stage of the plan for eternal growth to all of us in a grand council. Approximately 2/3 of his children agreed and supported it. The other third disagreed, to the point of rebelling under the leadership of an influential son. He did not want free agency to form part of our mortal experience. That's the next stage of the plan. So he suggested during that stage, he force us to follow the plan and so save us all, lead us all successfully to the post-mortal stage. Clearly, he was persuasive, and his proposal attracted a huge number of our fellow siblings. However, what was his real motivation? In exchange for his heroic act, he wanted all the honor and glory. Does this sound vaguely familiar to the motivations that drive many leaders in our time on earth? In contrast, the eldest son supported the plan that proposed free agency, freedom of choice. So just like we could choose who we would follow in our premortal stage, we could continue choosing to follow the plan during mortality or not. The eldest seemed to understand that fundamental to authentic growth is freedom of choice, of course at the risk of losing children, which sadly happened. He wasn't blinded by ego and did not desire glory at all, but suggested it remains with Father. Does that sound like the kind of leaders we need desperately on earth today? Thankfully, an all-wise, all-knowing, all-loving, and eternally experienced Father assigned the eldest son to implement and lead the plan. As a result of this rebellion, the 1/3 were cast down as spirits with their leader. Sometimes tough and difficult actions are required, and no doubt Father had to do this. The consequences of their decision were that they would never experience mortal life as the 2/3 would, and immortality fell beyond their reach. Without realizing it, they would still form an integral part of the overall plan. They had no clear destiny from then on, except to try and drag us down with them, which is what miserable and unhappy people often do. The eldest son, under the direction of Father, went to work and created this beautiful planet we now live on. He did it not alone, and there were several who helped him, of course. And we don't have detail on how long it took. Again, time is not the same in premortal life. First, our planet was created spiritually, planning phase. Then, physically, like it is now, or somewhat like this. There were at least 6 stages of creation, which I will not go into now. Upon completion, and with Father's final approval, mortality, stage 2, began. So, give my arm a rest, and we're going to go into mortality, where we are right now, you and I. Questions I hope to answer here. Why are we here on Earth, collectively and individually? Is there an overarching battle between good and evil? We'll touch more on it here. You can see it started in the premortal life, that battle between good and evil. Do I have a soul or a spirit? Again, we've established that. But very importantly, in this stage of our full existence, what does that mean for my day-to-day living? How does it impact me? How do I ensure true and lasting happiness in this life, not just temporary pleasure? And hopefully I answer more about the real purpose of our existence here on earth. You need to realize that the fact that you are now in mortality means you chose Father's plan and you followed the eldest son, your oldest brother. Your true self, your spirit, entered your mortal body and you were born. You came alive. But of course, in infant form, I think for good reason. I'll discuss in a moment. The plan has always been and still is that each of us are born into a family with parents, a replica of where we come from. The family structure with loving parents, ideally, who have already traveled some of the road, is meant to ease us into this harsh environment and teach us the plan, which means the answers to the above questions. Many parents don't know the details of the plan, but fortunately, their instincts allow them to transfer some of what's important to get through this mortal life. Because free agency has been part of humans for a long time, in many instances, choices have led to broken, dysfunctional, or ignorant family environments. In essence, though, your birth means, in most cases, a man and a woman, biological parents, practice their free agency and sacred procreative powers that are planted inside them so that the plan can live on. What most human beings don't fully realize is that when they practice these two powers in tandem, they partner with their creator in rolling out the proposed plan. In other words, creating physical bodies for our spirit brothers and sisters to inhabit. It's a sacred responsibility and privilege, but not treated as such in our world. As a bit of a side comment, ever wonder why 5 kids, in my case, and 9 in my wife's case, grow up under the same roof with the same parents and gene pool, yet they are so vastly different? Even perfect twins are different in personality and character. It's because most of their character was formed in their premortal life. One of the purposes of mortal life is to prepare and train your spirit, your true self, to occupy a physical body. But first, it must be one of flesh, bones, and blood, so a mortal body. In preparation for an immortal body, of flesh and bones, but no blood. Mortality, here where we are now, is a testing, growing, developing period. It's not easy at all. But it was carefully, meticulously, and perfectly crafted by its author and creator to stretch and prepare us for much greater things. Some of the key components needed for a maximized experience while we were here in mortality were a couple of points. Firstly, a world of opposites: good and evil, happiness and sadness, health and sickness, pleasure and pain, right and wrong, and so many more opposites. But just our spirits inside our mortal physical body already sets the tone for an experience of opposites. Also, freedom of choice to navigate the opposites. Then, opposition to enhance an environment of opposites and choice. And that's the 1/3 who are desperately unhappy and want to thwart our progress. So it's not just the devil as taught from young. It's a little bit more complex than that. That's a half-truth. It's a host of spiritual beings under his leadership, and it's real. The next point is living and seeing through the eye of faith, intuition. Also, a method, a structure, or a system through which our Creator communicates this magnificent plan so that you and I can reconnect with it. A way to compensate for our innumerable mortal weaknesses without robbing us of our God-given free agency. A way to overcome physical death, that separation of body and spirit that still lies before us, to somehow bring about an immortal body. These are some of the factors needed to maximize our experience. And for these elements to impact our growth fully, we are not to remember our premortal stage. If our memory allowed us to remember everything, our mortal life wouldn't be a worthy test. It's a bit like if I could remember everything taught in varsity classes and didn't have to work and prepare for exams, why be tested? I know it's not a perfect example, but you get what I'm saying. The need to forget our premortal life could be, in part, why we are born as infants, still pure and untainted from the worldly experience. It is as if a veil was drawn over our minds. Side note, ever wonder why babies are so pure? They bring out the best in people and soften the hardest of hearts, mostly. My intuition tells me at that young age, you could remember some of your premortal past. You had some memory, but of course couldn't communicate it. But still, babies somehow touch our spirit. In time, as you were influenced by the harsh realities of this mortal experience and settled into your mortal body, those memories faded. But when you know where and how to look, you can and will learn just enough about the plan to have to walk by faith or intuition, and not just by sight. You can reignite those memories, but on an eye of faith, intuition level, somehow connecting with your true self, your spirit inside. While in mortality, you are fully tested, absolutely, through innumerable experiences of opposite that compel you to use your agency. It's this experience of discovery, needing to choose, learn, make mistakes, and sometimes getting it right that helps us or helps you to grow and learn what true joy is. Not to be confused with momentary pleasure. The discovery of moments of true joy is one of the secrets and purposes of mortality. Achieving fullness of joy is one of the greatest gifts in premortal life. We'll talk about that more. Ultimately, you will take your experiences, knowledge, wisdom, and further develop character with you. Not much more than that. Our wayward brothers and sisters, the 1/3, are around you, trying to distract you from your destiny and discovering your true and best self. That's also part of experiencing joy. Because they are spirits and you are one step ahead of them as a mortal being, their power over you is manageable. But it's there and it can overpower you, especially if you're not aware of it. My intuition tells me they can remember premortal life. Perhaps some of their memory also faded, but they may very well know you personally, and this could give them an advantage over you. But if you find and follow the author or creator's plan and your pure intuition, you will avoid and overcome their and all mortal influences to make progressive and not regressive choices, to grow from the constant opposition towards your best self. Our tests and trials in mortality come from different influences. It comes from actual opposing forces at play. It comes from our own choices. It comes from the choices of others that impact us directly or indirectly. It comes from the nature of our physical and aging mortal bodies, the creation or creations around us, and its natural consequences, like natural disasters, deteriorating man-made structures, and so on. Now, the opposition wants you to be miserable by succumbing to your worst self, because that's their state of mind and destiny. Our eternal parents, with the help of others, created this incredible planet so that you can become your best self and be happy, at peace, experience lasting joy. For you to become your best self, you need to understand your true self as much as possible, which will bring clarity, more faith and understanding, endurance, perspective, and a sense of purpose. Knowing that you live in a premortal life and what the purpose of this life is does all that and more for you. So at some stage, of course, at some point, you will die. This simply means your true self, your spirit, has had the needed mortal experience and leaves the mortal body. Okay, the last and final stage, and then some comments. Your post-mortal life. So I hope to answer questions like, what happens after we die? Of course. Is there a heaven and a hell, as many have been taught since young? Will there be a judgment day based on how we lived on earth? And does it matter? Who can I really become? What happens to my family relationships after death? My parents, siblings, wife, and kids. Do we become acquaintances or stay a family unit? All right, folks, transition from mortality to post-mortality will more likely, I believe, be a seamless and natural experience, perhaps more so than what seems to have been a fairly traumatic transition from premortal to mortal birth. I mean, that seems quite traumatic for a little baby. Death will be like walking through a door, I think. Your spirit will once again temporarily separate from your mortal body. So that'll be familiar territory. Yet one wonders how differently it would feel, because then we will have context of what it felt like inside a mortal physical body. You will be productive in the spirit world, learning and growing more, because eternity is a long time. For those who did not receive a fair chance to hear, accept, and live this plan, Father's plan, here is where they will receive the full opportunity. And only He knows what constitutes a fair chance. One may prefer to live the plan consciously while in mortality, because doing so with the context of mortality while in the spirit will limit one's capacity to fully do so. But it will be possible. Now, there's much more to say about this, but it's for another time. What's most important to know is that our immortal Father is perfect, which means He loves perfectly, and so does Heavenly Mother. And He is also perfectly fair. Every one of His children will receive a fair chance to decide for themselves. After all, this was the entire reason for a war in premortal life, with many casualties as a result. It was about the freedom of choice. All this happens in the spirit world while waiting in anticipation for the uniting of your spirit with an immortal version of your physical body. No blood, just flesh and bone. This is an extremely exciting doctrine and principle and truth. All defects that existed on or inside your physical body will be rectified. No hair on your head will be lost. Whatever ailed you during mortality will be history. Therefore, whatever pain, suffering, or disability you or someone you know may be experiencing right now will become memory and valuable experience. After this grand resurrection happens, you will be fully immortal like your eternal parents. You will never die, feel physical pain, or experience mortality in any way. This is what you were destined to become. It is in part what you endured the challenging mortal life for. Now, where you spend your immortal future will largely depend on how you lived during mortality. It was a testing period after all. What kind of decisions did you make? Did you choose the author's or father's plan and guidelines according to the best of your knowledge? There will be a judgment period by our perfect Creator, and there's lots to say about that. But my intuition tells me when we ourselves are immortal, that means a full memory and brain capacity that remembers every act, thought, and intention inside an environment where all is revealed and fully transparent. Because of that, we will, to a large degree, judge ourselves, progress to where we feel comfortable and deserve to be. We will not be forced to one or the other kingdom. We have an idea of what our brain utilization is in mortality, different views on it, but it's not a lot. Resurrection restores our brain's full capacity. Can we even comprehend the consequences of that? There are some interesting movies about it. You will fit into one of 3 overall kingdoms, which are each much more stunning than planet Earth. Everyone who originally chose Father's plan in premortal life will be rewarded with a better place. So there's already an incredible reward to live as an immortal being. In the end, in essence, that means the opposition will lose no matter what. But at best, they may have distracted some from reaching a higher and more glorious kingdom, which could be hell for many, or all of them, all of us. In this context of truth, hell or damnation means your progress or potential has been blocked from what it could have been, as a dam is blocked from flowing freely. And because one is then able to understand the full plan from beginning to end, knowing where one could have ended up, who one could have become fully, will be a form of hell and damnation. While your situation will have significantly improved from mortality, I believe it will still be a bitter pill to swallow. And of course, there is infinitely more details about these kingdoms. For now, their glories are compared with the sun, celestial, moon, terrestrial, and stars, telestial. Those who reach the celestial kingdom will experience fullness of joy. Immortality will not be about organizations like businesses, governments, political parties, or churches. These are man-made institutions. Eternal life will not be an obsession with acquiring stuff and wealth at the cost of others. Our existence, listen carefully, will revolve around the all-important and God-instituted family organization. Therefore, the families we are part of and will co-create ourselves could be part of us forever. The most important relationships will be inside families. That is why in mortality we are appointed and released from all positions except father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother. These leadership positions are here to stay forever. Other relationships formed during mortality will also remain important, and when we reach the other side, we will rekindle premortal relationships. Our worldly possessions generated on earth will mean nothing. What will mean a lot is the experience, knowledge, and capacity to create and build. Because ultimately, this is important, we too can become like father and mother. We too will be able to build an eternal family and create worlds, or part of it, like the one we now live on. We will become creators. Life as immortal beings is hard to comprehend through our mortal and finite minds. I know. It will be infinitely larger and more spectacular than this life. But we need to qualify for it in the Creator's way, because He created it. But remember, you have already accepted the plan. It's just about rediscovering it. That's why it's so important to go to work and discover your true self and consciously move towards your best self as soon as possible. Now, some general observations, if I may. I hope I can answer the question of if there is good and evil, what's the aim of the latter and others. It's interesting to note that in all instances of moving between stages, it's our spirit, our true self, that does it. So from pre-mortality to mortality, it's our spirit that travels. From mortality to post-mortality, our spirit once again does the traveling. So I think our true self truly is a traveler and explorer. And one day all these memories will form one great whole. Can you now see why in the beginning I challenged you? I said this. I said, today I challenge you to stop procrastinating, to stop being cautious or even fearful of asking these eternally significant questions. I challenged you to boldly, unashamedly explore and search until you find the answers. The real you, your true self, is on an incredible adventure towards ultimate immortality and eternal life. Your being here, listening to this message right now, is not random. You are part of a collective and grand purpose. My intuition also tells me that each of us in premortal life committed to an individual purpose, and that this had something to do with helping one another make it through the second stage, which is so challenging. You were born in a specific place and possibly in a specific family for a reason. It somehow prepared or prepares you uniquely for your individual purpose. Please be conscious of the people in your life, past, present, and future. I believe before we came here, we understood the rules of engagement, theoretically. We understood that we wouldn't remember details about our premortal experience, but we hoped that we would be diligent in finding a way to reconnect with it. We knew that we would not remember our unique purpose, but again, hoped we would have the courage to search for it. Of course, we didn't know practically how challenging it would be, how tempting and alluring the mortal body and all its appetites and passions would be. How challenging it would be to set aside the eye of sight and adopt the eye of faith, to see life through our spirit eyes. It is difficult, but you know by now that anything worthwhile is difficult. In fact, often the most difficult, the more important. The opposition knows, this is a very important part of my message. The opposition is very clear that family was everything in premortal life. They know it should be everything in this mortal life as well. And yes, they know it continues to be everything in the post-mortal life, in immortality. Therefore, where do they deploy their greatest resources and energy? The family. They are doing all they can to destroy the sanctity of family units. They come from all angles. Look at where the world is going, and you will see their onslaught clearly. There is strong opposition to the need for families in general. Many propose the family unit has failed and served its purpose. There is strong opposition to marriage as an institution. There is strong opposition to the truth of two genders, which directly threatens the act of procreation. There is strong opposition in favor of abortion. Pornography floods the earth for a reason. Parents are so busy making ends meet, so preoccupied with mortality, that their children are raised by others, including educators. The family is under attack. Pure and simple. I can go on and on. Most of us don't see the opposition's strategy because we don't know the Creator's plan. And that's why I've chosen to go public with what I have discovered on my intuitive journey and learning so much through the eye of faith. I know my approach will incur the wrath of many. The opposition will not like it at all. But I cannot shy away from my mission, and I am emphatically fighting for Father's plan to succeed. I fought for it in my premortal life, so did you, and I still fight for it now. Join me and millions of others, believe it or not, in this ongoing battle, which is becoming more brutal. We cannot sit on sidelines any longer. There are big things coming in the next few years as the battle between good and evil rage more intensely than ever. And that is my message, to help you discover your true self in order to become your best self, to really know who you are and who you can become, so that you can lead more consciously today, others, your organization and society, so that you can lead yourself more determinedly, more consciously, obviously, so that you can make a better contribution while you're on this planet, so that you can spread the message. Realize there's a big plan. There's a premortal, mortal, and postmortal plan. You have something more inside of you than just your heart and your brain and so on. There's just so much more. Let's get this plan out there if it speaks to you. We are more than happy from Me Vision Academy. We teach many things there. But if you want to go on a journey, individual journey, with you, your family, in this world, in this realm, if you want to know more details about this grand, infinite, and eternal plan, I would be happy to engage. We would be happy. There truly are so many more details, guidelines, assistance, and clarity available. We are not alone. Our Creator and Master, God, Planner, does not sit out there as an intangible, power-hungry punisher. Not at all. Our older brother has also been actively involved all along as the perfect leader. I would love to tell you more about that. You are part of something magnificent, a master plan, and inside it, you can find your own unique purpose and destiny, your ultimate best self. We can help you on this sacred and deeply personal journey. Thank you for hanging in there and listening. I hope it did something for you. All the best.